I'm young enough to remember what it felt like to be young, but old enough now to understand what my parents carried. Tonight, this isn't a sermon, it's a conversation around the fire. The kind of conversation where generations meet, one remembering deliverance, the other learning devotion. Parents see the flame and remember Egypt. Children see warmth, comfort, and light. One generation remembers how they got here, the other just knows they're here. And in between them stands grace, the bridge between memory and mission. Every family has an Egypt. For some, it was addiction. For others, poverty, fear, or religion without relationship. God brought our parents out, but deliverance doesn't erase the mindset Egypt left behind. Some were raised to survive, not to rest. That's why some parents love hard but express it harshly. Before you judge their silence or their structure, ask yourself, what did they have to survive to become the person I call mom or dad? That's Egypt, and it lingers longer than the chains. We are the children born free. We didn't see the Red Sea part. We were born on the dry side of deliverance. Our parents' faith was built on what they saw. Ours must be built on what we believe, and that takes greater faith. Jesus said, "Blessed are they that have not seen and yet have believed." John 20:29. This generation lives in that blessing. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Hebrews 11:1. Our parents walked by miracles. We walk by trust. Theirs was a faith that followed evidence. Ours is a faith that is the evidence. When you can't see what your parents saw and still trust the same God, that isn't lesser faith. That's greater faith. The Apostle Paul, a man who had encountered the divine in the most dramatic of ways, still held one singular burning desire. He wrote, "That I may know him." Philippians 3:10. This wasn't a wish for more information or theological data. It was the deep, resonant cry of a heart that longed for intimacy, for a connection that transcended mere facts and entered the realm of personal relational truth. It's a profound statement, suggesting that even after years of service and revelation, the ultimate prize was simply Him. Centuries before Paul, another soul, Job, endured unimaginable loss, wrestling with the silence of heaven. He had spent his life honoring God, following the rules, and believing all the right things. He had heard the stories, learned the doctrines. But through the crucible of his suffering, something shifted. His entire paradigm was remade, not by an answer, but by an appearance. In the end, his conclusion wasn't a theological treatise, but a simple, breathtaking confession. "I have heard of thee by the hearing of the ear, but now mine eye seeth thee." Job 42:5. This is the turning point. This is the moment faith ceases to be a concept and becomes a conviction. Faith like that transforms you. It's when belief becomes personal. It's the difference between knowing the chemical composition of water and feeling the cool relief of a drink on a scorching day. It's the difference between reading a map and actually feeling the earth beneath your feet as you walk the path. For so long, we can find ourselves chasing a story about God. We collect anecdotes, memorize verses, and build an impressive mental library of who He is supposed to be. We become curators of a faith that lives in books and sermons, a historical figure we admire from a safe distance. But the invitation was never to become a historian of the divine. The invitation was to step into the narrative. It's when you stop chasing a story about God and start living a story with God. Suddenly, the story isn't just on the page. It's being written in your own heart, with every choice, every challenge, every quiet moment of surrender. Your prayer life begins to change too. It morphs from a formal address into a familiar conversation. The words are no longer just memorized lines, recited out of duty or desperation. They become the authentic, unedited language of your soul. Sometimes there are no words at all, just a shared silence, a feeling of presence, a deep and abiding peace that says more than 1,000 eloquent phrases ever could. When your prayers stop being something you repeat and start becoming something you experience, you discover that communication with God isn't a monologue you perform, but a dialogue you inhabit. That's when faith grows from hearing to knowing, from stories about fire to a fire that burns within. The stories were essential. They pointed the way. They were the kindling, the dry wood that prepared your heart. But at some point, a spark must fall. A divine encounter, a moment of profound seeing, must ignite that fuel. And once it's lit, it creates its own warmth, its own light. It's a fire that sustains you through the cold nights of doubt and illuminates your path when the way forward is dark. It's no longer a borrowed light, it is a fire of your own. This inner fire consumes the old self, the fears, the pride, the desperate need for control. It's a willing death, a surrender that leads to a more authentic life. Paul understood this radical exchange perfectly. He declared, "I am crucified with Christ. Nevertheless I live. Yet not I, but Christ liveth in me." Galatians 2:20. This is the great paradox of transformative faith. In dying to yourself, you truly begin to live. The life you now lead is animated by a different source, powered by a different spirit. It is a life lived in, through, and for the one you have come to truly know. And as you continue on this journey, something remarkable happens. The desperate search for external validation, for miracles and wonders to prop up your belief, begins to fade. You no longer need to see a burning bush, because you carry the fire within you. You no longer need the seas to part, because you have learned to walk on water, one faithful step at a time. When you walk by faith long enough, you stop needing to see signs, because you've become one. Your life itself becomes the evidence. Your peace in the storm, your grace under pressure, your unwavering hope in the face of despair, these become the signposts that point others not to a story, but to the living, breathing, transformative presence of God. There's a well-worn phrase, a piece of cynical wisdom often passed down with a knowing sigh: youth is wasted on the young. It suggests a tragic irony at the heart of human experience, that by the time we acquire the wisdom to navigate life, the vibrant energy of our early years has already faded. It paints a picture of youth as a season of beautiful, chaotic aimlessness, a time for making mistakes that will later become lessons, for chasing fleeting desires that will eventually leave us empty and searching for something more. The world tells us this is the natural order of things. Live freely, explore everything, and only then, when you are weary and worn, begin to seek out the deeper meaning. But what if this isn't the only path? What if it's not the intended one at all? Imagine a different story. Imagine if this generation, right here and now, chose to sidestep that narrative. Imagine if they came to know their Creator early. Imagine the profound advantage of finding your true north before you've spent years sailing in the wrong direction. Think of it, to come to God before the deepest scars have been carved into the heart. The world can be a harsh place, and navigating it without a guide often leads to wounds, scars from broken trust, from compromising your values, from seeking validation in all the wrong places. While God's grace can heal any wound, imagine the strength of a spirit that was protected from the outset, a heart that learned its infinite worth from its Maker before the world ever had a chance to name its price. Imagine a life lived with fewer regrets, not a life without mistakes, for those are part of growing, but a life where the big regrets are preempted by purpose. The regret of wasted time, of squandered potential, of years spent chasing emptiness. When you anchor your life in God early, your choices, even the small ones, begin to accumulate into a legacy of intention rather than a collection of what-ifs. You build a foundation on solid rock, not on the shifting sands of cultural trends and fleeting feelings. And imagine standing firm before the world can convince you that you are too young to matter. Society often dismisses the young, telling them to wait their turn, to get more experience, to quiet their voice until it's been approved by the gatekeepers of age and accomplishment. But this is a lie. It is a lie designed to neutralize the incredible power that youth holds. God does not ask for a resume. He asks for a willing heart. He doesn't see age. He sees availability. There is an ancient and urgent invitation, a piece of divine wisdom that turns the world's advice on its head. It is a call that echoes through millennia, as relevant today as the moment it was written. Remember now thy Creator in the days of thy youth. Ecclesiastes 12:1. To remember here means so much more than a simple recollection. It is a call to action. It means to align your life, your thoughts, your every ambition with Him. It means to build your identity on the one who created you. And why in the days of your youth? Because this is the time of unparalleled potential. This is when your energy is a blazing fire, not a fading ember. This is when your creativity is a rushing river, not a dwindling stream. This is when your passion can move mountains. Imagine surrendering all of that raw, untamed power to the Creator Himself. Give Him your voice, the voice that speaks up for the voiceless, the voice that shares testimony, the voice that sings His praise. Give Him your art, the music, the paintings, the films, the designs, the unique creative expression that only you possess. Let it be a reflection of His beauty and truth. Give Him your intellect, the sharp mind that can solve problems, that can study His word deeply, that can defend the faith with gentleness and respect. Give Him your time, that most precious and non-renewable resource. Offer it back to Him in service, in prayer, in fellowship. The world may look at your youth and see naivety, inexperience, or a blank slate. But God looks at your youth and sees a warrior, a leader, an ambassador. He sees an instrument perfectly tuned for His purpose. This is why the Apostle Paul gave this charge to his young protege, Timothy. A charge that rings true for you today. Let no man despise thy youth, but be thou an example of the believers, in word, in conversation, in charity, in spirit, in faith, in purity. 1 Timothy 4:12. This is not a call to be perfect, but to be an example. An example of what it looks like when a life is fully surrendered. When you give your gifts back to the giver, He doesn't just use them, He multiplies them. He anoints them. He makes you mighty among men, not for your own fame, but for the expansion of His faith. He takes your youthful fire and makes it a beacon of hope in a dark world. Don't wait for wisdom to find you in old age. Seek it now, from its source, and let your entire life be a testament to the power of a youth devoted to God. Faith without surrender is incomplete. Build your altar where you are. Present your bodies a living sacrifice. Romans 12:1. The fire doesn't fall on empty altars, it falls on surrender. Let the fire around you become the fire within you. Let your worship be the wood, your obedience the flame. Let's journey back in time, to the heart of the Babylonian Empire, a place of immense power and pride. Imagine the scene, a vast plain, a colossal golden statue gleaming under the sun, a monument to a king's ego. King Nebuchadnezzar, the most powerful man on earth, issues a decree. When the music sounds, every person from every nation must bow down and worship this idol. The penalty for refusal? To be thrown into a blazing furnace. The music begins, a symphony of imperial command. And as one, a sea of humanity bows low to the ground. But not everyone. 3 young men, Hebrew exiles named Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, better known by their Babylonian names, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, remain standing. They are pillars of integrity in a field of compromise. For them, this isn't a political gesture, it's a spiritual line in the sand. Their allegiance is to the one true God, the God of their fathers, and they cannot bow to another. Their defiance is quiet, but it's a thunderclap of conviction that echoes across the plain. Word travels fast. The king is furious, his face contorted with rage. How dare they? He summons them, offering one last chance. Bow, he commands, or burn. And here, in the face of absolute power and certain death, these 3 men give one of the most profound statements of faith ever recorded. They don't beg, they don't negotiate, they simply state their trust. They tell the king that the God they serve is able to save them from the furnace. But then they add the words that change everything, the words that define the very essence of surrender. But even if he does not, they say, we want you to know, Your Majesty, that we will not serve your gods. This is the pinnacle of faith. It's a faith not in an outcome, but in a person. It's a trust that says God is good, God is sovereign, whether he delivers me the fire or sustains me the fire. It's a complete and total release of their own lives into God's hands. When Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were thrown into that furnace, heated 7 times hotter than usual, they gave God everything: their careers, their reputations, their bodies, even their very lives. They held nothing back. They had reached the end of themselves, the point of absolute surrender. The flames were so intense they consumed the guards who threw them in. From a human perspective, this was the end. A tragic, fiery conclusion to a life of faithfulness. But when they surrendered all, the fire couldn't destroy them. It revealed them. It revealed the substance of their faith, the strength of their God, and the truth that what is forged in the heart of God cannot be consumed by the fires of man. The king, peering into the blaze, leaps to his feet in astonishment. He sees not 3 men, but 4. They went in bound, but came out free. The fire, intended to be their executioner, became their liberator. It burned away only the ropes that held them captive, leaving them unbound and unharmed. They went in 3, but in the heart of the inferno, they met the 4th man, the Son of God himself. Before Jesus ever walked the shores of Galilee, he walked through the fire with those who trusted in him. He didn't shout from heaven. He showed up in the furnace. He met them in their moment of greatest crisis. When they were called out, the satraps, prefects, and governors crowded around. They saw that the fire had no power over their bodies, nor was a hair of their heads singed. Their robes were not scorched, and there was no smell of fire on them. Daniel 3:27. Think about that. Not even the of smoke. They didn't just survive the fire, they defied its very nature. They walked through a literal hell and came out without a trace of it on them, because they were walking with the King of Heaven. That fire wasn't for destruction, it was for demonstration. It was a divine stage. It was meant to demonstrate the weakness of the world's most powerful king, and the limitless power of the King of Kings. It was meant to show that our God's presence is more real than our problems, his power more potent than our pain. The furnace became a sanctuary, the place of execution became a place of encounter. The same flame that should have ended them, elevated them. Before the fire, they were skilled administrators. After the fire, they were living legends, undeniable proof of a God who saves. Nebuchadnezzar, the man who just moments before had condemned them to death, now promotes them to even higher positions in his kingdom. The very thing designed to be their downfall became the catalyst for their promotion. Their obedience turned the furnace into a platform, and their faith made their God famous among the nations. Nebuchadnezzar himself, the proud idol maker, becomes a preacher. He issues a new decree, not of worship for his statue, but of reverence for the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. He declares, "Praise be to their God, for no other God can save in this way." Their personal trial became a public testimony that echoed throughout the most powerful empire on earth. That's what happens when you give God your all. That's the beautiful, terrifying, glorious exchange of surrender. We give him our brokenness, he gives us his presence. We give him our fears, he gives us his peace. We give him our lives, he gives us himself. The fire that tests you becomes the fire that heals you. It purifies, it refines, it burns away the impurities, the fear, the doubt, the self-reliance, and leaves behind a faith that is pure, strong, and radiant. That's why this conversation, this night, is called the fire that heals. Because the trials we face, the furnaces of sickness, of loss, of betrayal, of uncertainty, they feel like they are meant to destroy us. And in a way, they are. They are meant to destroy our pride, our illusion of control, our dependence on our own strength, but they are not meant to destroy. They are invitations to encounter the 4th man in the fire. Because the same God who stood with them in Babylon is still standing with us today, not just to bring us out of the fire, but to bring himself glory through it. He is with you in the chemotherapy chair. He is with you in the quiet of a home that feels empty. He is with you in the uncertainty of your future. He is walking with you right now through whatever blaze you are facing, and his purpose is the same, to burn away the ropes that bind you, to reveal his presence to a watching world, and to bring you out not with the smell of smoke but with the fragrance of Christ. The fire that healed them is still burning. And it shall come to pass afterward, that I will pour out my spirit upon all flesh. Joel 2:28. The same spirit that guided our parents now rests on sons and daughters who will prophesy, dream, and believe beyond what they see. As the fire fades and the night grows still, may the warmth of His grace remain. Grace doesn't go out when the flame burns low, it becomes the light that guides you home. This is beyond the verse. This is the Campfire Conversation, and this is the fire that heals.